You are making the fascist argument that the hierarchical structure of government is just and should be upheld regardless.
Why? Okay, I'm not going to ask that. This is
right. And so the system we have is
I'm just not loving, and this is a way of celebrating violence, that Trump is celebrating those as far as a pardon, and in his rhetoric and in his national anthem thingy, people who attacked the Capitol. Why did they attack it? Because they believed lies about the election.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I stumbled across this video from a while back, and it's Luke Beasley sitting down with Tim Pool on Timcast IRL. They get into which side of politics is actually more violent, and whether a president should be handing out pardons to people convicted over the riot at the Capitol. It gets heated fast, and Tim ends up making a claim on camera that he really should have checked first. Quick question before we start. Do you think a president should be able to wipe away a jury's verdict? Comment yes if you think that power is fair game. Comment no if you think a conviction should stand. Let's get into it.
Luke, do you feel as though more Democrats were willing to justify the BLM riots than Republican elected officials were to condemn January 6th?
Well, interestingly, a lot of the, I will answer the left wing in a second, but a lot of the Republican politicians just changed their position. So initially it was like unanimously that was bad. Now almost all of them apologize for what happened that day. And we all, as I was explaining one of the times here, we all missed the broader danger of trying to block the peaceful transfer of power that led up. January 6th wasn't the whole thing. That was the ending, and that was more individuals. But Trump's effort to prevent Biden from coming to office is what I really take issue with. But no, now a bunch of Republicans apologize for it, which is terrible. And then Democrats...
No, but the question was specifically for the Democrats.
And then I couldn't tell you...
Any Democrats who were condemning
my guess would be that more Republicans have apologized for the violence on January 6th than Democrats, but let me get to the caveat, then Democrats who apologized for violence during BLM, very limited. They would all say violence is bad, but the cause was...
It's the voice of the unheard, like MLK, remember?
But then I'd get to, I think it's a fair criticism to say, maybe some were too quiet about the violence. Like none of them were out there saying this is fine.
Well, yes, they were taking a knee. They were taking a knee. Many of them, Nancy Pelosi and some Democrat leaders, and they
would show up to a peaceful protest, and then as a part of that, people would be exploiting.
Maxine Waters with the whole, you have to go find them in restaurants, and you have to get in their face.
Like that's not direct violence, but that's
encouraging.
Here's two phrases for you: respect the diversity of tactics, and snitches
Keep bringing that up.
And snitches get stitches.
What? Okay.
No, but then Kamala Harris also was posting a bail fund for BLM rioters, and
it's just weird. Y'all are the ones supporting the politicians who say this, like Trump.
Who? Say what?
Who justify violence?
Why did Trump justify violence?
I thought we just went through that.
We didn't. I asked you for examples, and you said, "I don't know." Don't just squint
really
at me. Tell me what you think.
No,
It's like whenever you don't have an answer, you just get confused and say, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I'm genuinely confused.
Okay, let's try this again.
Listening to me. Because
I am,
obviously, if
I ask you a question and you just don't answer, and then you go sophistry.
Because I only speak
ad hominem.
I only speak on. I haven't done ad hominem.
All you're doing is saying you do this, you do that, you do this. You're not actually giving me substance.
Oh no. I was saying I was just shocked that you didn't listen to my substance earlier. But yeah. So the January 6th. While I'm only going to speak on things I'm very informed on, so I'm not going to tell you exactly to the month that they should get. I do respect the fact that they were prosecuted in a court of law, and I don't think Trump to send a message to his base that what happened on January 6th was good, which is why he would do such a pardon, should be pardoning folks who were violent. Or
I think 3 years is long enough.
Yeah, and that's a wrong stance, but okay.
How's it wrong?
I just explained it to you.
No. You didn't. You said the court process should play out the way it is. My opinion on the amount of time should be served for a crime is not just wrong because you like courts.
No, I get that.
You need to explain why the time frame I'm asserting should be longer than 3 years.
No, I'm saying the default, you have to have overwhelming, compelling evidence that someone has been wronged to justify a president stepping in and saying, I'm subverting the justice system outcome. Do you agree with that premise?
No.
That's immoral.
So you're making a fascist argument.
A fascist argument?
You are making the fascist argument that the hierarchical structure of government is just and should be upheld regardless.
Why? Okay, I'm not going to ask that. This is
right. And so the system we have is
I'm just not loving, and this is a way of celebrating violence, that Trump is celebrating those as far as a pardon, and in his rhetoric and in his national anthem thingy, people who attacked the Capitol. Why did they attack it? Because they believed lies about the election.
There's a variety of reasons why people were violent on January 6th. Largely that they believe the election was stolen.
You could just be like, hey, that's bad. You don't have to keep going.
I've called for their arrest and prosecution. Like, this is not.
This is the trap, and it gets set in the very first sentence. The question is built so that no matter what Luke Beasley says, he loses. Either he defends unrest from years ago, or he throws his own side under the bus on camera. That is not a question. That is a box with a lid on it. Watch what he does instead. He steps out of the box and points at something far harder to explain away. Luke Beasley said this: a lot of the Republican politicians just changed their position. So initially, it was like unanimously that was bad. Now almost all of them apologize for what happened that day. That is the whole ball game, and almost nobody wants to sit with it. You cannot say the condemnation was sincere and say the reversal was sincere. One of those two positions has to be a performance. Go back and look at those first few days. Floor speeches, press releases, statements from people who have spent their entire careers on the other side of Luke on every issue that exists. Then the polling moved, the base got loud, and the same mouths that called it a disgrace started calling it overblown, then patriotic. That is not a change of mind. That is a change of weather. And here is the part that gets me. Luke gives an honest answer about his own side too. He says the criticism is fair, that some of them were too quiet about the destruction. He gives ground voluntarily. He gets nothing back for it, not 1 inch. That is what happens when one person is arguing and the other person is scoring. Then the pardon fight starts and the whole thing turns. Luke's position is simple enough for a child to follow. Prosecutors brought cases, juries convicted, and you need something extraordinary before a president reaches in and erases that. And instead of arguing the sentences, instead of saying 3 years is too long for this specific offense, Tim Pool reaches for a label. Tim Pool said this: you are making the fascist argument that the hierarchical structure of government is just and should be upheld regardless. Sit with what that actually claimed. 12 ordinary people in a room, hearing evidence, reaching a unanimous verdict, and saying that outcome deserves weight. That is now the authoritarian position. Meanwhile, the guy with the pen, the single most powerful individual in the country, unilaterally wiping away those verdicts for people who fought with officers on his behalf. Apparently, that is the freedom move. I have watched this technique for years, and it never changes. When you cannot win on the details of the case, you widen the frame until the case disappears.
A shock to my audience.
My reporting is responsible for the arrest of a couple of January 6th
My point is that if you've got somebody on a misdemeanor charge who's been held without trial, a pardon makes perfect sense, unless you're a fascist and the system is just. So it's like Benjamin Franklin, who said it is better that 100 guilty persons escape than 1 innocent person suffer. You've taken the Otto von Bismarck approach of it is better that 10 innocent people suffer than 1 guilty person escape.
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you have.
No,
right?
I
So
haven't.
No, stop. You don't know anything about these January 6 cases. You don't know why these people are in jail. You don't know that a man is in Brooklyn right now for 3 years without charge or trial. And when Donald Trump says these people have been held for too long, you say, no, Trump is wrong. Keep them locked up. That's fucking fascist. Dude, you've been sitting here with no knowledge of the specifics of some of these cases. There is a man in Brooklyn right now, I'm going to say it again, no charges whatsoever brought, and he's been in jail for 3 fucking years. For you to sit there and say it is good that he remains locked up is fascism. That is saying the hierarchical system of the courts and the government is just, and the process is all that matters. And I am saying perhaps 3 years is enough, because I actually have moral logic and an understanding of these cases. Hence, my position on January 6th has always been the people who have attacked police must go to prison. But 3 years is a fucking long time for assault on an officer. We have seen people on the far left, notably when they were firebombing shit all across Minnesota, 33 people murdered. And how many criminal charges did we get for this? When they firebombed a police station and forced the police to evacuate. On May 29th, 2020, when thousands of far leftists firebombed the White House grounds and set fire to St. John's Church and injured 100 police officers, how many fucking people went to prison for 3 years? How many of them who never showed up on that day are in prison for 20 years? Enrique Tarrio wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th, and you are saying that man who his only crime was, quote, don't leave. That's his only crime. You think he should be in prison for 20 years because you're a fascist. You don't care what the facts are. You don't care if this is unjust. You only care that the machine state has decreed you are not to be locked up. And this is the problem I have with the left. They don't know the facts. They don't care about the facts. They view morality as a blanket government stroke of the pen, and every person, regardless of their crime, should be in prison for decades. I reject it outright. The people who fought cops should go to prison. They did. It's been 3 years. But when you've got people who are on misdemeanor charges for having walked into a building at 4 p.m. after the riot, and I know some of these people, they walked into a building for 2 minutes and walked out, and they got 18 months for that. I don't see you defending the innocent people who walked onto a public grass at a public building after a riot had been completed. You don't know. You don't care. You've taken a tribal position and people are suffering because of it. Now you say that Donald Trump saying the injustice that we've seen warrants commutation or pardons. You say that means he's advocating for violence. This is the ultimate problem. Then you cite a press release from Maryland saying, but the right's more violent. There is a distinction between a white supremacist as a right-wing group and a run-of-the-mill Christian conservative who showed up on that day not to protest. Let's talk about Brandon Strzok. He never went in the building. He was on the other side of the building. There was a permitted protest. He walked up the stairs and he was yelling. They put this guy in prison. There is Owen Schroyer, who was at a permitted rally, who was yelling death to communists. They put him in prison and specifically cited his speech. My dude, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's fine. I get it. We try to be polite. We try to be nice. But there are so many young liberals who sit here and say, the corporate press told me that these people are bad and the machine state government has decreed it by pen. So I don't care what crime they committed. I don't care what the jury said. I don't care who was on the jury. Enrique Tarrio, who was not there, should be in prison for 2 decades. Tell me this now. Why is Enrique Tarrio in prison?
Here comes the switch, and if you blink, you miss it. Tim Pool said this: if you've got somebody on a misdemeanor charge who's been held without trial, a pardon makes perfect sense, unless you're a fascist. Notice the population just changed. The conversation started with people who fought officers. Now suddenly we are talking about a man on a minor charge sitting in a cell waiting for a court date. And you know what? On that narrow point, I actually agree with him. Nobody should sit for years without a trial. That is a real problem in this country, and it disproportionately hits people who cannot afford bail, which is a fight the left has been having for decades while he was nowhere near it. But that is not what a blanket clemency does. A blanket wipe does not sort the guy who walked in for 2 minutes from the guy who swung something at a police line. It covers them all. If your concern is genuinely the man waiting without trial, the remedy is a court date, not an eraser held by the person those people were fighting for. And this is exactly why the argument gets loud instead of specific, because the specific version loses. Let me give you some history here, because none of this is new. In 1974, Gerald Ford issued a full and unconditional pardon to Richard Nixon before a single charge was ever filed. Ford went on television and said the country needed to heal, that a long trial would tear the nation apart. He believed it. His approval rating collapsed anyway, and it likely cost him the office. That is the lesson nobody wants. Pardons that erase a process are always sold as mercy, and they always land as protection for one faction. Ford at least had the courage to face the country and defend it in person. Then Tim Pool runs out of case-specific material and does what people do when the well runs dry. He starts listing other cities, other years, other events, none of which he was asked about, and he ends up here. Tim Pool said this: there are so many young liberals who sit here and say the corporate press told me that these people are bad. Look at that. He is no longer arguing about the cases. He is arguing about Luke's media diet. When a person answers a question about evidence by describing what they imagine you read, they are telling you something without meaning to. They do not have the evidence in front of them yet, which is how we get to the last 3 minutes, and I promise you, it is worth it.
Yeah, so they uncovered with him his plot to overthrow the government.
Enrique Tarrio?
Yeah, and his organization.
What plot? Who's they? Give me some
prosecutors.
Give me some fucking data. Stop squinting at me and saying the prosecutors did a thing. You didn't know. You didn't read it. You didn't read the court papers. All you know is the fascist machine state told you he should be in prison, and you're saying yes to them. Tell me why. Give me the data.
I understand that laws on the books have been there for a long time, that I agree with, that if it's proven that you had a plan and you wanted to act on it,
What's the proof?
then days
What's
after.
the proof?
The proof is
say the proof.
by prosecutors.
Say it.
Communications between
What communications? What did he say? What did he do?
Is this serious?
Are you going to tell me why you think Enrique Tarrio should be in prison for 20 years, or are you going to say the government decreed it?
I just explained to you.
So the government said so. Is that it?
It's usually law enforcement, which I guess is part of the government.
Government said so?
Yep.
So you can't say why.
That uncovers evidence of communications, a memo that he crafted and sent to his organization.
Saying what?
That detailed each institution of government that they were going to try to overthrow. Then just days later, His organization is at the Capitol.
I don't think we can even pull up Enrique Tarrio.
I'm not quite sure that there's any evidence of that sort.
Yeah. You know what? I'll say this. The idea that Enrique Tarrio crafted a memo outlining or they 3 months featured witness evidence featured at Tarrio and co-defense included videos, thousands of messages in encrypted chat groups, as well as a public message on Parler. On or before January 6th, Tarrio convened a Ministry of Self-Defense to coordinate Proud Boys leadership on January 6th. The chat showed that Tarrio, stationed in Baltimore, encouraged the Proud Boys as they attacked the Capitol. Let's figure out what that encouragement was. Are they going to actually say in the article? So here's a citation. Proud Boy and 3 other members of the far-right groups were convicted Thursday in a plot to attack the Capitol. A jury in Washington, D.C. found Tarrio and 3 lieutenants guilty of seditious conspiracy after hearing dozens of witnesses. Jurors cleared a 5th defendant, Dominic Pizzola, on a citizen charge and a significant milestone of the Justice Department, which is now secured a conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. They will never stop. Okay, that's interesting. Wikipedia asserts that they did this, but there's actually nothing in the news article that actually states that is true. Well, now we got a problem. Let's try this again. Let's try a secondary source. Let's see. There it is. They introduced evidence that Tarrio discussed with associates a plan to have a large crowd in Washington storm government buildings in a scheme they called 1776 Returns, in which the Winter Palace was used as an apparent code for the U.S. Capitol. In a message, he said, make no mistake, we did this, do what must be done, and he directed the Proud Boys to do it again. So the question then becomes, in the bigger picture...
So are you going to at all acknowledge that you just blew up over something that I was absolutely citing fairly?
I don't think you cited it fairly.
I think people should be prosecuted for engaging in plans to overthrow a government.
Watch the confidence level here, because it is about to become the funniest thing in this entire conversation. Tim Pool said this: "What plot? Give me some data. What? Stop squinting at me and saying the prosecutors did a thing. You didn't read the court papers." That is a man betting everything on a bluff. He is not saying he disagrees with the verdict. He is not saying the sentence was excessive. He is saying the underlying thing does not exist, and that Luke Beasley is a puppet repeating something he never checked, so he pulls it up on screen, live, in front of the audience. And the first source he lands on describes exactly what Luke just described: a coordination effort organized before that day, encrypted chats, a public message, direction given to the group while it was happening. His response? He waves it off. He says one source asserts it, but the article does not confirm it. Fine. So he tries a second source, and this is where it collapses completely, because the second one lays it out in plain language. A plan discussed with associates to have a large crowd storm government buildings. A code name for the target. A message telling them to do it again. He read the evidence out loud, himself, to his own audience, after demanding it and insisting it did not exist. And here is the educational piece people should actually know, because it explains why this case was charged the way it was. The seditious conspiracy statute traces back to the Civil War era, written when the country was dealing with people organizing by force against the government itself. It is one of the oldest and most rarely used tools on the book. Prosecutors almost never reach for it, and juries almost never convict on it, because the bar is genuinely high. You have to show agreement, planning, and intent. That is why the conviction mattered, not because a press release said so. Then comes the moment that tells you everything about how this stuff works now. Luke Beasley said this: "Are you going to at all acknowledge that you just blew up over something that I was absolutely citing fairly?" And the answer is no. Of course it is no. After 10 minutes of yelling about facts, court papers, and how nobody read anything, the reply is that he does not think it was cited fairly, followed by a quiet pivot to the position Luke held the entire time, that people who plan to overthrow a government should be prosecuted. That is not a concession. That is a man walking backward through a door while still shouting. And here is what I want you to take from this. Volume is not knowledge. 20 years of field reporting is a resume, not an argument. The loudest person in the room called someone a fascist for respecting a jury, demanded evidence he was certain did not exist, found it on his own screen, and still would not say the word. If you ever wonder why these debates feel unwinnable, that is why. One side is trying to be correct. The other side is trying to never be seen losing. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.